Hello, hi, good afternoon, everyone, or morning, or evening, wherever you are. I hope everyone's doing well. I see that there's not too many people on the stream. We'll wait for a bit for people to trickle in. But as people do that, please make sure you check in. You want that free extra swag. Make sure you sign in and check in. And we're probably going to get started soon with some introduction to Python. And I promise you, I am only drinking water. It's purely water. Nothing more to it. If you haven't yet, this session is going to be on Python. I know we're not getting a better background, by the way. Not my favorite. But we'll go over some really brief information on just on how Python works, etc. I think the music might be a bit loud. Just lower a tad bit more. Cool. There we go. But yeah, I hope everyone's been doing well. And I know it's getting towards the closer ends of Global Hack Week INIT. Hope everyone's still hacking and still working towards that extra swag. I think, today is day 5. I will be closing day 5. And then we have day 6 coming up and 7, and we're just done. I hope you guys have seen the new mascots. Pretty cool. Okay, as we wait for people, let's get some stuff going. So if you are joining us today right now, to make everyone's life a bit more easier and without installing every dependency possible, actually I'll go here. We're going to be using Replit or Replit.com. It is one of the sponsors actually for Major League Hacking, but what's really cool about it is you can legit code anywhere, you can collaborate, and it's really easy to get started. Everyone, if you haven't have an account yet, all you got to do is just sign up for an account, and we'll give it a couple of minutes and we'll get started with some actual learning. How's everyone doing? Anyone have their favorite workshop so far they want to share? And again, it's water. I promise. But again, if you haven't gotten it, we're going to be using Replit. I think that's how you say it. At least that's how I've been saying it for the longest time. I will actually log into my own right now as we wait for people. Hi, how are you guys doing? If you haven't checked in yet, make sure you go to that link and check yourself in. You do want to get your attendance in for the additional free swag. I heard it's pretty cool. I'm actually making sure I check in myself for some of those swags, so make sure you check in too as we get going. If you haven't heard, if you're just joining us now, we're going to be using Replit.com, which is also actually one of our sponsors. We'll be using them for our environment because that's really easy to use. And if you guys ever need to collaborate with people, it's really easy for that to get going. I might upload my code later to GitHub for anyone that is following us with the stream afterwards or want to go back and reference the code. But let me see. I'm going to hide my screen for 1 second as I am signing in. Make sure you sign in if you haven't. Here, we're going to go to this mode for a second just to make sure I am all set up clear. So if you haven't, make sure you go ahead and make an account. It is what we're going to be using. I will drop the link into chat for everyone. It's a free service. Everyone can use it. It's really easy to get set up, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, we'll give it a few more minutes. It is a really cool site. You get to do a lot of coding without having to go through all the setup, which makes it really easy for people to dive in and learn. A few reminders, like normal. We usually have a good range of skill set, so it's okay if you don't know everything. We're here to learn. If you do know everything, feel free to hop in and help. I don't know every single thing, but I will do my best to teach what I do know. And for anyone who has any additional comments or want to add something to the discussion, feel free to drop in the chat. And we'll go from there. So everyone, if you want to hop onto repellit.com and make yourself an account so we can get started. So the first thing we're going to do is go to your repels, create your first repel if it's your first time doing this. And then we want to use Python. And I'm going to name it MLH. Actually, I'm going to do Global Hack Week INIT 2023 as the name. I'm going to be the owner. It's going to be public, so anyone can view it afterwards. I'm going to create it. So once you're done, it generates a whole console, a whole shell, a file system for you to be able to utilize, and we'll get started. Okay, I know, so running your code, right? Most of them you also hit Control Enter or Control Return on your keyboard, your output, your file tree, etc. Invite collaborators and so on and so forth. But that is less interesting. If you haven't checked in, make sure you check in. Feel free to ask any question along the chat as we go along. And I will be blowing up my screen. Let me see if there's a feature for it, or else I will just be using the zoom feature. Yeah, okay, we're gonna default to the zoom feature. I think this is pretty big. We're gonna hit F11. There we go. Okay. So let's get started. How many people have gone to the site, made an account, and are ready to follow along? Let's see. Is anyone ready? Or should I give it a few more minutes for people to get ready? Maybe we need some better music, actually. Let's see. Energy level. Let's get some high energy level music. I like to listen to piano music as I code. It's pretty relaxing. Okay, cool. I'm glad you're in. Nice. Then let's get going. So the first thing is learning what each how a language really works, right? So if you did not know, Python is what we call it's an interpreted language. I can't spell. This is why you see I have a hard spell check. It's an interpreted language, whatever, right? It's an interpreted language, whatever, however you spell that. So essentially what that means is it reads every line of code. Its control structure is each line of code followed by the next. Python is also a language without defining types of variables, which means you just create a variable and you just name it something and you assign it. There's no actual initialization of a variable. I mean, there is, but there is no declaration of variable. You don't have to declare a variable to initialize it. You can just directly initialize the variable from the beginning. So what this means is I can do cat is equal to 8. That works. I can then do cat is equal to tree. That also works. You can see those are, one of them is clearly not a number. If anyone who's joining us now, we're going to be using repellit.com for this workshop. They're a sponsor for LMIH, and they're just really great to get started and learning. If you haven't learned a language, I'm going to drop in the chat one more time. Make sure you log in, make an account, and then all you got to do is create a new repel, select Python, name whatever you want, and hit create. A few things we want to go over first is the different types of variables that exist in Python. So you have your normal integer objects, right? You have a normal str, a string object, right? You also have what we call a list object. We also have something called a dictionary object in Python, but these are more advanced. So we're going to go back to them. We're going to start with really just integer strings, we have your normal Boolean objects, right? So these are some of the more basic objects in Python. Has anyone heard of any of these objects, or anyone can think of any objects off of the top of their head? There is still more. Let's see if anyone knows any of them, or anyone can think of any objects from any other languages they do know, and we can see if they exist in Python. Char? That is a really good guess. So Python is unique, and we can see they are chart objects, but we rarely do use them because Python is a really abstracted, it's a really high-level language, which means that there is no need to really use a char. We will most likely be working with strings. Array is the same thing as a list. This is basically Python's version of an array. Dictionary is Python's equivalent to a map, if you ever use the map in a different language. Tuples is one. I generally like to avoid them. Tuple is essentially a immutable list, and we can go over what those are later. But essentially, it's a list you can't edit after you declare. These are map, list, dictionary. Array are part of no. So array are not technically part of a dictionary. A dictionary, you can utilize dictionary to generate your arrays, right? But they're not. So these are just some of the basic structures in Python, right? So let's do our normal. So we always start with every language with that pretty common hello world, right? So to do this in Python, what we would start is Python's print, where output statement is just called print. So you can just do print, and then you would do your quotes, right? And then, so that's declaring a string. You use quotes to declare a string, and you would just type hello world. And then if you hit Control Enter, which runs it, you can see in the console, we print out hello world. As you start, and we're slowly add complexity to this hello world, and then at the end, we'll come up with a console program that you can add to, you can advance, there's so much you can do in Python. We're really just going to be learning the basics, but Python is a really good language because there's a lot of libraries built for it. It's a really high-level language. There's a lot of data science library built for it. A lot of AI and machine learning is done through Python, so it's always a great place to start, right? So now if you have already printed out hello world, what we can look at next is declaring a variable. But remember what I said earlier, in Python, you don't really have to declare a variable. You kind of just go straight into initialization process. So I can do var, or that's probably a bad name because in some, that's a keyword. So we're going to do, let's see, what do we name it? So let's do string hello world. So this would be actually a really bad variable name in Python. The only reason is in Python, the standard is generally snake case. Snake case is when you use underscore to connect your splitted words together, right? So for that same thing, this is known as camel case. In some languages, this would be the go-to way. So this is called camel case. This is called snake case, but I'm going to do it so it will be string hello world, right? So I will do pound. This is known as snake case. Actually, let's go up here, edit this to camel case. And what's important about this is I can set this to anything right here, right? I didn't, in most languages, if you coded prior, you would have to have declared, right? You would have to say int, and then say whatever this is. In Python, we don't have to do that because there's no type restrictions on any variable, which means you also want to be careful. But because of that, I can do this, watch. So I can now print, right, which it auto-completed for me, print string hello world, right? And if I print that now, we should see 8 and then hello world because we just added that 8, right? But what's scary about Python is because there's no limitation to what that variable can be as in terms of its data type, I can later in the code, let's say I wanted to do string hello world. So this would be, I don't know if you've seen it, like the H8, I think what was it? It's like HALLO, right? Hello world, WORLD, whatever, right? So that's like hello world, right? And this is a string. We can also come down here and then change this. So hello world, I can't remember. I think it's like 530110, whatever, right? So like there's like a number version of hello you can do on your calculator. It's pretty cool normally. But yeah, so if we do this, and if you run it, you can see without redeclaring that variable, we're giving a new type. We just took a variable that was a string, print it, just assign it to an integer, and it just accept it. That is the danger of variables in Python. So you really want to be careful with your variable and don't use them for multi-purposes, because that can lead to unexpected cases. It might work most of the time, but it might not work all the time. So you want to keep that one in mind. So when going back to our hello world example, we're just going to actually get rid of this, take back the snake paste thing, and we're going to take this and actually place it into our variable. So I'm just copying and pasting it directly right in. Again, if you have any question or need me to slow down or explain anything, feel free to drop something in chat. If you're just joining us, make sure you check in. I will drop you the check-in link in a few. Give me 1 second. Let me look for the check-in link. So you make sure you check in here at this link. And here you go. And then if you're joining us now, and we're using repelit.com, so here is that link. All you got to do is make an account, and we'll go from there. Give me 1 moment. Let me see. Just check something on my computer. Cool. But yeah. So as we were saying, is that this will now create a variable called hello world. And instead of writing it directly in here, we can now put our variable in here. So this, as you see, if I hit Control Enter, will get me the same thing as we had above. So now to keep a track of history of what we have coded, I'm going to recode the print just directly with hello world inside. Oh, that's the website. Hello world. We directly coded in here. I'm going to comment that out, and this would be our first version, right? Version 1 of our hello world. Our second version was done like this. We're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it. I'm actually going to comment this out too. And this will be our version 2 of hello world. So in this one, we utilize a variable and we assigned it. This one, we directly printed that object. The next thing we're going to look at real quick is user input. So for user input, what Python has is the keyword input. And this takes a prompt, which means you give it any string and it'll ask the user. And how this would work is you would assign it directly to a variable, right? So instead of me putting hello world here, I would do input, and then I will populate whatever I want this to be. So I'm going to type hello world, or actually, what greeting message would you like? So, right, so you're prompting the user. I like to usually add a colon and then a space. So you hit enter now, you can see in your console, you now got a prompt, and you see this box is where you can type, right? So I can now type hello world. And the prompt accepted this, stored it in this variable, and then returned it to us. So this is the way of getting user input, right? Now to build a really simple thing is the next progression from here is now we have gotten user input. You can use this in a lot of different ways. So for example, we can start by asking some information. If I was to, let's say, collecting information for a form, right? So each of you guys, I'm assuming, are a human, which means you have a name. And because in Python, we don't have to declare what this is, but we know we want this to be a string, which we can give type hints and stuff, but we won't be going into that. Hello, welcome to the string. If you're joining us new, make sure you go to repellit.com. Yes, you can. Here is the check-in link. I will paste it in the chat for you. And you can follow along by creating an account on repellit.com. That will allow you to work directly from there. We'll really just go over a lot of basics of Python. So if you have experience, you might have already seen some of this stuff. I hope we have time to go over some cool tricks and stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in chat, and we'll answer them as we go along. Yeah. So next is let's create, let's say, a mock form for someone, right? So if I'm, let's say, working on the back end, I want to collect some information from someone, I will just do input, and we will do something like quotes. What is your name? So how input works is it automatically enters a new line for you each time. So we don't have to worry about entering a new line character like in some languages. You're new to Python. We're going to do age equals input. Right? What is your age? All right. And then we can do, let's say, fave underscore. You see, we want to use snake case. Fave underscore color is equal to input. What is your fave color? So now we have three kind of like prompt boxes. We can do this. I like to add a space, so there is a space in between the character you're typing in your terminal later. So now if I hit Control Enter, you can see it prompts you one at a time. So what is your name? I'm gonna take our newest member who just joined us, SUCHIAO1. What is your age? I got no clue. Yes, I can scroll down a bit. Can you see it? Let me know if I need to scroll down anymore. So now, or if I need to scroll up. All good, cool. So age, we would like it to be a number, right? But the key thing here is Python doesn't care. So I can totally enter it in English. And let's say 18. I can even spell it wrong, and Python just does not care, right? Because Python any input comes as a string at first, right? So if I do this, I collected these variables, but I didn't do anything with them. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna teach you the next concept now. So we're gonna do a print statement like normal, but we're gonna introduce a more powerful version of a string. It's called f string. So you're gonna start by typing f quotes. Just one quote, and it's not double quotes, a single quote. And you would now start doing like my name. I'm actually gonna end the quote here. So my name is, you can use brackets, and then you put in your variable name. I am brackets age, and my fave color is, right, that's blocking it. My favorite color is brackets fave color. So how this works is f string will automatically put your variables that you declare up there directly in your string. So yes, that is what we're gonna call, it's called type checking. There's actually no way to declare that type directly in Python like that. So I can't say, oh, this has to be an integer object. But what I can do is validate its integer object. Give us 1 second and we'll go ahead and add that check. But there's no direct way to declare that has to be an integer object. Okay, and so we're, oh. Okay, so let's continue if everyone get a chance to catch up. So this is one way of doing it. So again, you put your variables inside curly braces, and you start with F. It's called F string. So now if I run it, and this time if I give it name, so I'm going to use Kev, age 100,000, whatever I want. I'm going to use that as a number. I'm going to do color now. My favorite color is cyan. You can't tell from the aesthetics of the string. But enter now, you see it returns that perfect sentence, except for I forgot a space here. So I would now go back and add the space. This is one way to do it. Another way, if you're more into your regular print statements with your string variables, what you can do is, if you want, is go for quote, do my name is, and then you can use concatenation. Like in most languages, it's a plus. Do name, and then what you would do is concatenate it again, do another string, and do a quote. You would probably want a space here, right? So you have to add them in yourself because they won't come in with a space. And then we would do continue that and do I am. And then you would do the same thing, space, and your quote. And then you would do another concatenation, start another, and add back your thing. So this would be age, and then do another concatenation, do your another quote. This is why this is not the preferred way to do it, but we're going to show you every possible way. So my favorite color is, and then we're going to do that ending quote again, and then we're going to do the concatenation again, and then we're going to insert favorite underscore color. And that will end it, right? So this now should print this twice, right? Once with what we call F strings. Once with what we call concat. So this one takes each variable and concat or adds it to the end of each string. This one is basically doing that without as much work. You can see this is way longer and it was a lot harder to type than that one. So now we will do hit. Okay, so that's my entering. So I'm going to first run it. What is your name? Let's take another fellow person from chat. So I am going to put this. Your age will be your number, and your Twitch name. Your color is your cyan. By chance, I'm going to put cyan. You can see we got two of the exact same input from two different lines of code. And that just reiterates, in the coding world, there's so many ways to do something. There's actually one more way of doing this. So there's actually two types of F string. One is doing it this way. I think, let me double check the other way, because I don't use that one as much, because the first one is so much easier. I think it's called format or string F strings. It's always okay to Google things. That's how we learn. So if you ever have a challenge, it's knowing what to Google. So we know this is called F string. So the other way of doing this is what we call, let's see, dot format, right? So the other way of doing this is we start by doing print. And then we enter this, we start our quote, and then we would just type our regular thing, but each time we hit something we want to put, let's say this, we leave the brace. So it's like this exact same thing, except for we copy this paste down, right? You see how now this is throwing a fit. We want to take out each of these. Now take them out of the brackets, and we just leave the brackets at the location where you want the variable. You do dot after the string, you do a dot, dot format. Then now you want to open another parenthesis, and now you want to pass in the variables that should fill those places, right? So our first one was name, our second one was age, our last one was favorite color. Now if I hit enter, oh, there's an error. Let's see, it says unexpected, line 31. Oh, why is that an error? Oh, it's because I forgot to close out my print statement, right? So it's expecting a closing parenthesis. So I'm going to add that in now. I'm going to hit enter. I'm gonna do Kev, age 100,000, favorite color blue this time. You can see that same statement printed out 3 times now. So this one is called format or string format. So the one I found the most useful so far has been this one, is why I showed it to you first. But these are also valid ways to do it if you ever are in the mood for. So now we can do something even cool. So now we've been over a bit of strings. Let's take a look at another way we can store this information, right? So we have things called lists. To declare a list, all you have to do is list name, right? Whatever, and that's camel case. So we have to redo this. List name, I don't know, is equal to a list. Actually, before we do this, since there was a question about this earlier, let's add some validation to this, right? So if we really want to make sure our age okay, so if you want to comment on multiple lines of, there's no dumb question, always for to ask. So if you want to comment multiple lines of code at once, you just click, highlight every line you want to comment, hit Control on your keyboard, the question key on your keyboard, and that will comment everything else out. Yes, there's a lot of ways you can actually manipulate strings in Python. So now let's add some validation to this, right? Since we said we want to make sure this is a number when we get them in, so maybe we want to do some calculation in the back end. What you can do is add a while statement. So these are called loops. If you are new to coding, there's 2 types of loop in Python. You have something called while loop and a for loop. We're going to start with a while loop. While loop takes a condition after the while, right? So we'll start with while. So there's also something called a do while loop that exists in some languages. Let me just double check. I can't recall. Do while. What languages do have them? I think like C++, and there's certain languages that have them. Python is unfortunately not one of the languages that has do while loops, but essentially do while loops allow you to say do something while something is true or false. I mean, when something is true. So what we would do here is while age dot is digit. Let me just make sure if this is actually imported in. Is digit. And let me double check. So we want to grab age for the first time, right? So we now put age on top. We want to grab it first time. Now we want to give a statement. So I don't know if Repel has this built in. So let me double check this. So age dot is digit. There we go. So now it populates automatically. So you tell is digit. That is a check to see if it is a number. So we do while age. We do this is the abbreviation for not. In some languages, I think in Python it might be 2 of these, or we just use not. So right. So while not age is digit, which will return it's not. Well, as long as it's not a digit, what you want to do is you want to do age is equal to input again, and you want to ask probably a new prompt, right? So like, whoa, that wasn't a number. Enter a new number. This is the way you can validate input from your user without directly assigning it to a variable, because that isn't what we normally do. We can see invalid syntax. Why? Because I'm missing closing parenthesis right there. So if I hit Control Enter or I run it, I do Kev, and then for number, I'm now gonna put whatever thing. You see, now if I keep doing this, I will continuously prompt it for this until I actually put in a number. So now I'm gonna put like 100, it'll accept. And my favorite color is, let's say, blue. And you see now that there is a level of validation in there that wasn't there before. And there's a lot of different one of these. So like there's is digit, is decimal, is string, etc. All you've got to do is do a quick look, right? So we're gonna prove it. So we can do like, right? So we can do Another way is learning how to Google what you need is really important because that's how you learn, right? So let's say I want to check, is it a string? We can do how to check if a var is a string, and then you add in the language you want it to be in, because when you're self-learning, this will give you resources, right? So check a variable is a string, and it will tell you, so like use is instance, right? So this is a way you can use multiple things. So you do is instance, you provide a variable, and then you provide the type of data or object it is. And there's multiple ways of doing a lot of things. So learning how to look things up is a really good way to learn. Okay, so now we have, I'm gonna now comment some of this list. We don't need to print that many times. We're gonna take this code and we're gonna work with this code actually. So let's say, okay, I collected information for one person, but I want to collect information for more than one person. What can I do? So in that case, like we talked about, let's say we want to collect information for exactly 4 person, right? What we would do is, another loop I mentioned before is a for loop. So how a for loop is structured is you do for blank in blank. Yes, you can use triple quotes for comment blocks like this, and then whatever you type in between, you can just comment. That is a really good use for resources if you're directly typing a comment, right? So like this is a note, etc. But if you're just commenting on lines of code and you want to do it really quick without doing that, just highlight the lines of code you want, hit Control question mark, and this will just quickly comment them out. I find that a lot useful. Also because doing it this way, let's say I want to bring back just this line of code, I can just hit Control that, and only this line of code will be brought back. But this is an excellent point. It's 3 quotes will generate an actual comment object. But yeah, let's continue. So we now have collected information. As I was saying, is let's say now we want to collect information on 4 people. I love my spell check. It's the only reason I'm still alive. There we go. So there's a comment now. So now let's say, so remember we're talking about for loop. So it will be in Python, how for loops work. There's a few kinds. You have something called, actually this is great. We have this here now. You have something called for each loop. And you have something called for I loop. So for each loop is when you go over iterable objects. So it's an object that has multiple items inside of it, like an array or a list. They're the same thing, but if you come from a different language, you might know an array over a list, or a dictionary, etc. You can use a for each loop. And this instance, we're going to show you a for I loop. So how for I loop works is for, you name your index anything, but because it's index, we can usually use one letter, so like an I, a J, etc. We're going to use I in this instance. We're going to do for I in range. So what range does is the keyword range allows you to generate automatically generate an object that is within a range. So right, so it takes things. It takes a start, an end, and a jump. But if you give it 1, it will count it as an end. If you give it 2, it will count as a start and an end. If you give it 3, it will count it as a jump. For our scenario, we're really just going to pass it 1, right? So for I in range of, let's say I want 5 objects, I would pass in 5. I would hit quote. Since Python is a syntax-based language, which means your formatting matters, right? See, I'm getting error. Why? Because we need to type it 1 more in, so it knows it's nested under this for loop. And you want to make sure you close off your logical things like a for loop, a while loop, an if statement with a colon. So now if I do this for I in range 5, and then if I hit enter, I can put my name in like Kev, age 100, color, I don't know, yellow. It'll ask me again after you print out one statement. And if you want to make sure there is another line between these, all you got to do is, let's make a quick, brief modification to our code, right? Is what we can do is now we can introduce what we call if statement. So up here is I can do if if is what we call a conditional statement, which means we give it a conditional here. So if, let's say, I is greater than 1 or 0, I don't know. We can test it, right? So we don't know. Range either gives you, it either counts from 0 to 4, or it maybe counts on 1 to 5. So let's test it with 0, right? So that should be the first iteration. Oops, that is a bad habit from a different coding language. So we'll just do that, enter, and then we need to provide something. So if it is greater than 0, we will just print. And all we want to print is a new line. So if you do flash, and that's the escape character for a new line, this will generate a spacing in between your inputs. But let's now give this a try. What we can also do is print each time. Let's print out our I, right? So attempt, ITT, attempt number, and then we will put this as a string. And then this is maybe case when you use concatenation because it's really quick and easy, right? So I'll just concatenate I to it. So we will see, and now if we run this, we can check out a few scenarios, right? So if I go ahead and stop it and run it now, oh, what's wrong? So if you did not know, concatenation can only work with string. So we can also get into another concept. This is called typecasting. So we can just put str, and then we put this around this. What this does is this takes the integer and try to convert it to the string. So let's make some notes so people can follow along. This is typecasting, spell casting, but for types. Typecasting, we're casting an int to a string. This is a for I loop. This is how range works. We've been over that. This is what we call a conditional statement. So now if we run this, it should work now. Attempt 0. So we saw it start at 0, which means if I put in my name, Kev, age 12, I'm definitely not 12, color, I don't know, blue, right? You can see now it generates a space after each thing. Why? Because the first thing it checks is I greater than 0, which means the first time 0 is not greater than 0 in this conditional, which won't give us this. And looking at that, we probably want to list this after here, right? So we can have the string down here. So because it's syntax-based language, we want to be careful of this. We'll probably want to tab this at one more. Take this typecasting comment, I'll move it with it. So now if I do enter again, and then I'll stop this, I'll rerun it, and then let's put in some bogus stuff. So like name is Kev, number is age is whatever, color is blue. You can see now there's spacing between our attempts, or we can also call this something else, right? It doesn't have to be attempts. It can be, let's use something better, like user info and number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since now we're at this point, let's say I don't want to just gather some of this stuff once. I want to gather it and keep it for a while. What we can do then is bring in what we call a list. In a list, we can append multiple objects. So let's start with a really basic list, right? So let's say I want to keep track of names. So after I grab the name, I can first let's make a list. So we're gonna go up here, and we're gonna do name underscore list is equal to brackets. Bracket is how you declare a list. Well, not even declare, how you initialize a list in Python. So once you do that, this is now a list, and what we can do is name list dot append, which is what allow append add the object to the back of the list, and we're going to do name. Right? So now if I run through this thing really quick, so first name is Kevin, age is 100, color is blue, right? And then second name is Kev, age is 78, color is yellow. Third name is it's off by one, but that's okay. Name is let's take someone from chat. Forces is, I don't know what that is. I want to say circles, but I don't think it's circles. Age is gonna be how old? Let's see. You came at 8 o'clock, 8:30, so it's gonna be you're gonna be 8:30. 830. Color can be, let's go with purple. PURPLE. And then I'm just gonna fill in random information. Oops. See, there's our catch. I tried to fill in something that's not a number, it caught it. So I'm gonna now give it an actual number, a random thing, random name, random thing, and then random color. So now we're done. But what this does, it will store everything in name. I forgot to put the print statement. I am so funny. So I'm gonna do print because you want to print out this to prove that it stored everything in name list. So it's okay. We all mess up. So that's at the end. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna comment out the collection of age and favorite color, right? Make this a bit quicker. So I'm just gonna do name. So I'm gonna be Kev. We're gonna oops. What's wrong there? Let's see. So because I used the F string and I didn't declare these. But that's okay. We're gonna comment this out temporarily too. And now I'm gonna do, let's say name is Kev. Second name is, let's say, Ryan, Mary, Brandon. Let's see some from chat. IU 0618. Let's do Forcia ZZLE. And we can do SUC. Oh, I already put more than enough names, right? So you can see this object of a list now stores these names in it. So this allows you to store more than one thing in a thing at once, right? We can also utilize this in a better way. We can take back our rest of our code again, uncomment it out, control question mark does that for you. And what we can do now is create a list on top. Instead of, we're going to change this name list to color list. Or actually, we're going to call this accepted color list. Then we're going to come down here, change this to accepted color list. Actually, we're not even going to pen. What am I doing? So what we can do is predefine this list. Let's say colors that we're allowed to be produced for a color. Anyone in chat want to toss me the favorite color? I'm going to put mine in. I'm going to take a few from chat. So what? Cyan's mine. Anyone want to pass in a favorite color of their choice? Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. If you want to follow along, we're on replet.com. This is not IDE. It's actually replit.com. It allows people to code together real quick. I can invite people to publish. They're actually one of our sponsors for MLH because they're such a great tool and they make coding really easy. You don't have to get your IDE all set up. We can jump right in, start learning. And when you're there, it is free, 100% free. So for people joining again, I will drop the link. It is replit.com. And you just got to sign up for an account and you get to utilize these platforms. It's actually use it a lot. If let's say I want to test a concept, I can directly open it and directly go in and start testing. So we got some color here. So we got black. Let's see what other beige. These are really unique colors. I was not expecting some of these color. Again, this is Replit. Purple. Let's go. Quotes. Make sure you put your quote because they come in as strings. Purple, and I think that's pretty good now. Red. Okay, we'll take a few more. Red. Anyone wants to toss any other ones? Turquoise. Red and turquoise. Actually, I got red already. Let me get turquoise. Okay, I'm going to call it there because we do have a good list already, and turquoise is a really good color. Okay, so what we can do here, Dodger blue, fine. I'll get one last one, and actually no more because we want to get going. Let's see. So Dodger blue. Okay, so now that's in here. The point of this list is this is what we're going to use as a validation, right? So we can now, let's say, go back to color, and let's say those are the only colors that are allowed to be favorites. So this is more useful in this is the only option you want to accept. But for our scenario, I'm going to say these are the only colors I want to allow. So I'm going to start up a while. So while, and I'm going to do, you want to actually do this after your first input because we don't have do while loops in Python. So we want to do this after our first input. So we're going to do this and we're going to do while. Now we're going to put in is while favorite color is not in. In allows us to check if something is in an object that you can parse through. So in our case, it's that acceptable color list, right? So it's saying while the color they enter is not in that list, what do we want to do? We want to tell them that they suck, but not really. But what we're gonna do now, see it's throwing an error. Why is that? We can check because again, Python is a syntax-based language, which means it's important that every indent is done properly. So we want to indent it by 1, and then instead of what is your favorite color, be like, what? That's not a good color. Pick a new one, right? And then now if we run this, you can see my first name is Kev. If I say my favorite color is green, I mean, this is age, right? Age, we did the validation where it has to be a number. So let's say 80, I'm 80 years old. My favorite color is green. If I put that in, what? That's not a good color. That sucks. So, but if I put in red, whoa, what's going on? I don't know if anyone could have expected that. The reason is because remember these are strings, that means they're case sensitive, which means if I put red for capital R, it works. Now to solve that problem, it's actually a really easy fix. Is now we want to go in here is each time when we do the check, all we got to do is dot. We want to do is do dot. So any string you have something called upper, which will now uppercase everything, or dot lower will lowercase everything, right? The whole point is evening the ground. So you just pick one of the two and you put those in, and you go to the other one, do the same thing. So dot lower, so it will make sure that everything you check has been lowercase. But to make sure this works even better, we actually wouldn't use dot lower on the second one. All we got to do is go back to our list and just make them small. And the reason why this is great is this will allow you to accept, let's say someone accidentally had their caps lock on, it will let you accept a lot more than before. So now if I rerun this program, I can do what is my name, Kev, your age, 9,000 years old. And for a favorite color, if I do green, it won't work. If I do green lowercase, it won't work. If I do green, it won't work, right? But if I do, let's say, cyan, lowercase, it worked. Let's try another cyan, right? So if I do Kev, we don't have a validation there, age, whatever. And if I do cyan with a capital C, it will still work. But as you can see, green before it worked either way. So now if I do Kev, let's say Kev, and we're going to do age, whatever. And then color, if I do cyan with R caps, it still works. Why? The reason is because, again, this will always turn wherever the user put it and make it lowercase, which means it'll always match this. This is how you do a proper check. If you have certain validation, you want to make sure. So now we added an input check for your number to make sure it is a digit we're getting in. We make sure this is fine. So now let's try something new, right? So let's say instead of just putting I am age, let's say, let's change this to my age in cat years is, I love cats, but let's look up. So remember, we can always Google things. It's always fun. So let's do cat year calculation, whatever. We might need to go to dog year because that's a bit easier to calculate, but let's see if there is like a formula for it. Just look up some dumb stuff. It's okay. Actually, let's do dog years, and what you call it cat, just because I feel like it. A dog year calculation. So how does that work? Isn't there like a scale or something? Because I thought I might be so wrong. Oh, okay. Add log and then plus 31. To make our life easier, we're just gonna add 31. Because well, we can do log, but here actually we're gonna make up our own formula. So your dog year, or we wouldn't call it cat year. Your cat year formula is just gonna be age. Now we're gonna multiply it right? But actually, no, we're going to square it. To square in arithmetic in Python is 2 stars. To multiply, it's 1 star. So we're going to square it, and then we're going to add. So order operations don't matter here. So we're going to square it first. I'm going to add parentheses to help me remember my order operation. I'm going to add 31, right? And then I'm going to now take all that. And then I am going to multiply by, to show you, multiply by, let's do 2. Okay, so that's a simple formula we just populated. Here's some math we just did in Python. So now if I run it, how many people think this works or doesn't work? Do you think there's error here? Anyone has any clue? Or anyone know what I'm trying to get at? Or there is something wrong with this? Let's see if anyone remember. We covered this concept a bit earlier, and we also talked about how something comes in through input. So anyone want to take a guess in chat? Feel free. There's no harm in getting it wrong. We're right, actually. Someone could get it right. Okay, I'll give it a minute. Also, the music stopped. Let's get some music going. Let's see. So I've been playing a lot of MLH playlists from our different streamers. So let's see. Let's go raid let's raid one of our coaches and pick a music from their playlist and see what they have going. Yeah, this song. No clue. Let's see. That is 100% correct. It's because remember we talked about earlier was that everything comes in. Ooh, I was not expecting words. It's okay. We'll lower the volume a bit. By a lot. Okay, cool. But that is 100% correct because we talked about earlier how input always bring things in as an integer. So we make sure, as a string, so we want to make sure we typecast it to what we want, right? For a mathematical operation, they don't work on strings. So we want to typecast this to integer for the math. But if we do it here, do you know what's the problem? When this finished, this still won't be an integer, right? Actually, there's no problem in this format. But if we were using concatenation up here, we have to recast it back to a string because concatenation only works on strings. Arithmetics only works on integers, right? Now if we run this, it should work fine. So I do Kev, what's my age? Let's say I am 32. I like that. That's a good number. My favorite color is, I forgot we lost some color, right? So if I do orange, it won't work. I also can't spell R-A-N-G-E. That's not good. I like cyan. Let's do cyan. That's gonna work. You see how it goes? My name is Kev. My age in cat years is 2110, and my favorite color is cyan. So now what we did is we added some math into our equation, right? We also did a typecasting, so we expanded on our revenue of things we can do. Okay, so we went over a lot of concepts. I want to take the remaining time and take some Q&As or questions from the chat. Anyone has some conceptual questions, or anyone are stuck somewhere or needs to catch up? I want to do a more advanced Python session, maybe next Globe Hack week, but this is really a lot of introduction to how to work Python and how to use its methods. So anyone that has any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, if not, we can do something fun as a challenge, and then we might call it for the challenge because I will be back online for some Unix later on tonight. I'm glad everyone followed along. So this was pretty cool. It's a really simple program. You should learn a few concepts along the way: for loops, while loops, how to do conditionals, how to type check, etc. So let's do a challenge for myself. I haven't coded in Python actually in a while. So if you ever are learning a language, what can always be fun, right, is to do Python problems, right? So you can always just Google a random Python problem and we'll solve it on here. And then I'll show you like how you would go through and let's say figure out either the problem or how you would think about it. I'm trying to find an easy problem. Hopefully we can find something easy, right? So let's see if we can find a problem that is okay. Cool. So we're gonna do a really simple problem, right? So let's do this one. I think everyone should be able to do this. For what we learned so far. So for this one, it's a good thing to use the quote block way we talked about putting in code. Here's a problem, right? So sum up integers up to n and write a function. So we're actually not going to write a function. We'll just take user input, or take user input of a single integer, and we're not gonna return by using functions. We're gonna print the sum of the integer from 0 to the integer to the input parameter. Okay, cool. And it should let's say it should print 0 if not a number. Okay, so how we go approaching this problem is we first read and see what we need. First thing what we need is we want to input from a user, right? So I would first do is user input. This is really generic, but probably you can do user input, and we can do num, so it's a bit more specific, and we'll probably do using our input here. Input, we use quotes, and now we'll do what is the number you would like summed up to, right? So user can input that number. So what we can do here is we talked about typecasting, as we probably want to do some operation on this later. You can directly typecast. Can we go away? Thanks. You can directly typecast this because this comes in as a string. You don't have to wait till the next line. All you gotta do is do int, put parentheses here, parentheses here. Now this will already become a number. So now we got our number. The next step is we want to print the sum of integers from 0 to that number. How we would do that is we want to sum up each number growing each time, right? So anyone have any clue what we would use here? It is a concept we discussed earlier on top. There is one concept that is really good for this problem. And actually 2 ways of doing this. And we can write both ways because it's pretty cool. That is one of our possible answers. Good job. So for loops is really unique. Both of you, great job. So we're going to start writing this. So for this one, we'll do for. And then remember how you give a variable name for the index, which is I in this case. For I in range, again, starts at 0, right? Which makes this really advantageous for us because we're trying to sum from 0 and up. So for I in range of the user input, what do we want to do? And got any clue? What would we want to do here? Let me scroll up a bit. So here's a problem. Here we go. So what would we want to do here in the for loop? Whoa. Why would we do that? That's way more complex than it needs to be. So first, we probably want a variable to keep track of our sum, right? So what we can do is set sum to 0 first, right? So we kind of already assume it's an integer. We go in here. We'll just do sum plus, I can't remember if plus equals works in this language. I'm pretty sure it does. Plus equal I, right? Because I will become 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and iteratively continue. So now what we want to do is print sum, right? So now if we stop and run this, what does number 1 sum up to? Let's say 5, right? And I hope we can sum up to 5. I hope you guys know what 0 sum up to 5 is, right? Right? And for people to map this out for people who are having a hard time, it's 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. You see the problem? We summed up to 5, we got 10, but 1 plus 4 is already 5. 2 plus 3 is 5. How come we only got to 10? Yes, it does. Anyone have any clue? How did we get 10 from this? This should equal 15. That is exactly correct. So how range works is that's a good guess too. But how range works is it takes this thing, it goes up till what you provided, so the end value. So range goes to your end value that you provided minus 1, right? So if we want this to be correct, we will want to do passes in, but when we pass in, we want to do a plus 1, because now this will sum up 0, 1, 2, exactly. Range is exclusive of the end number. That's 100% correct. Let's go. So if we run this now, and I put the same number 5, we get 15. So now that solves half the problem. We're still missing some validation checks as well as the other way to solve this problem. So I'm going to write the thing for the other way to solve this problem right now. So this is the for loop way of solving this problem. The other possible thing is you can use a while loop. So while your condition will be while. You would want first, you still want to do like an index where you can do we can call it counter, right? So when counter is equal to 0, counter is 0, so it's while, I'm going to do this one real quick. If you have any questions, if it asks what counter is less than, oops. I will choose my changes. That was odd. Okay, but yeah, so we'll do counter as less than, and we're going to do user input. Input. Right, and then we will do, there's a problem here. I don't know if anyone can catch it. If you can, we can fix it now. If you don't, we'll fix it after and see if anyone catches the problem. So this one we would do sum plus equal counter, and then we would do counter plus equal 1, right? So the counter grows by 1 each time. Why is that? Why does that unlike it? Oh, because I didn't finish counter. So counter grows each time by 1, while sum grows by each time by counter, right? So we run this. If I do 5 again, we get 10 again. Reason being is the while counter is less, we have to do less than equal to, right? So this way, when counter is 5, it still counts within the while loop. And you can just enter, and we'll do 5 again. There we go. Hello. Welcome. We're probably wrapping up soon, but you feel free to follow us. I'll be publishing this. You can follow along. We've written some notes, and you can also watch the recording later to follow along. We're doing Introduction to Python using Replit.com. It's a great free tool to get started and get going. We're also, what mini project can I do on Python, Kevin? There's actually a lot. You can do a Monopoly board. You can build games. Is one of my favorite things to build in Python. Because they allow you to utilize a lot of your skills. So like I've done Monopoly. Actually, I also teach Python at the university level. And one of the things we like to give out is like game level project, right? So you can do Monopoly, Battleship, and like Mancala. All those are great games to practice your skills because they teach a level of user interface, validation, and you can do it in function classes. There's so many ways you can do this. If you want something simple, I would say maybe start with any type of word game, right? Word games that just takes inputs in and splits something out. That's a really easy product to get started. If you are more advanced, you can start looking into data visualization using things like matplotlib, using things like the pandas library in Python, because Python is just really powerful. You can also do things like AI using AI gem, etc. And there's a lot you can do. I hope I can teach something more advanced in Python at one point, but today is really just getting people started and just relearning a lot of the basics. No, for sure. I would maybe make what's the game where you get words from people and you plop it in? You can make a bunch of random prompts, store it. You look up how to randomize generate a number, select a prompt, ask people for a number of questions for that prompt, and you can, what's that game? I can't remember. It's called, I don't remember. Someone probably knows what I'm talking about, where you just get a lot of adverbs. I think that's what it is, right? But yeah, well, I don't know. I don't think it's adverb. Adverb is the concept. But yeah, matlibs, yes. You can build a MATLAB game that's really simple. Utilize every skill you learned today. You have enough skills to build a MATLAB games, right? You can store your prompts in a list, and you can randomly generate an index between that list, grab the prompt, accept the inputs from a user, and print it out. That's good stuff to work on to improve your skill. But as I was saying, so now this prints this out. We'll keep the while loop version for the fun of it. Are really simple, but it's great for beginners to get going. They are really simple. But yeah, so let's continue with this. So the problem called for was that if the print 0, if it's not a number, right? So what we now need to do is a validation check before. So let's put some validation. Yes, for sure. So we have just learned a lot of the basics of Python. This is really an introduction course to Python. If you want to talk about anything advanced in Python, I'm happy to discuss a bit of it, but we're really trying to keep this on easy level, where the check-in link is on the schedule. If you need it, I can provide it for you. We are using Replit.com because it's a great way to get started in any language. They have a lot of languages, more than just Python. If I go up here, you can see, I guess you can't see from up here. It's just telling me it's Python, but they support a lot of languages. It's a really neat sandbox to just jump into. I actually use it a lot for testing, right? So if you have a concept you're thinking about, you don't want to open a whole project, start files, open a workspace, and just get going, right? So this is easy for people to, without getting set up and get going. You basically missed a lot of introduction to Python. So how to create lists, what type of language Python is, how to work through loops and different loops in Python and different concepts. Typecasting is because Python doesn't have a solid thing. So in a normal language, or if you code in a different language, I can say, like, I say this variable is an integer. In Python, you can't, which means sometimes you might want to typecast from a variable you are using to another variable, right? So for example, input will always bring in something as a string. And for a string, you can't do math operations on. So I will want to typecast a string to integer. And we do that up here. I will find this. You see, we got age from input, right? Age is equal to input. What is your age? Which means it came in as a string. And then we typecast it to integer so we can perform arithmetics on it. Another thing is down here, we also did that, right? So we first did this, we got input, then we typecasted it to integer so we can perform this math on it. That is what typecasting is, taking one data type and converting it to another. There's cases you will want to convert, let's say, a number to a string because, let's say, concatenation, what we did up here, one of the string formatting, this only works with strings. It doesn't work with integers or any other type of object, actually, in the matter of fact. So now we did this. Let's add the rest of the logic, right? So it should print 0 if it's not a number. So how we would do this is we first want to grab this. So then we want to do a check, right? So if user, we went over how to do this. So if user input dot is digit is the digit. If it is a digit, we want to do everything we just did here, right? Because Python is a syntax-based language. We want to tab it in one, and then we hit up. And then we would just write an else statement. So we talked about if statements. Another thing that exists is an else statement. That essentially is the closing part of an if statement, right? So like if and else do something. Else, we just print 0, like what they asked us to. And you can just do this. We're going to run it and see. So, right? So now if I give it something that's not a number, we get an error. Why? Because print also only takes strings. So I just forgot to put this in a string. So now if we run it, if we just type something else that's not, hit enter, we still get a trace. Oh, because the issue is we typecast it up here, which means whenever, actually print might be able to print 0. Let me put that back. It might be because we typecast up here, which means when we click input and we can't typecast it, it throws an error. The way to get around that is we can typecast when we need to typecast, right? So what we would do is we would typecast a version of that. So once we grab that input, we can do user. So if it is a digit, which also can't be checked if it's that, what we can do is, there's a lot of ways to solve this, but a really easy way is typecast this digit. And so if checks if it's a digit, we'll typecast it. And then we'll check if it's a digit. Actually, this is probably not the best way to do this. So we know typecasting. So now we grab this. And now we want to make sure if it's a digit. So now this, if it is a digit, we will need to typecast it. So, but we get it as a string first. So if we put anything else, we cast it as integer, it will throw an error. We would now probably want to put our integer is lower down in here. So what we can do is, there's another one, it's called is instance, right? So if I do is instance, and you can tell it what it is. So if user input is, let's say, an integer, etc. That's another really good way of doing this. Actually, let me think, because we can't return directly out. We have to think of a way to fix this. So user input num is equal to input string. So now we got the input. Now I want to see if this input is actually a number. If we typecast it, we get an error because if it doesn't have a number in it. So how do we check this? So this is when we can check if it is a string that is not convertible to a number. What we will do is we'll do a quick check. So let's see. So this is how you would like work in the real world, right? So once you get stuck, you can just go, so Python, how to check if a string contains numbers, right? So like this is an easy way. So you check if string contains number. There's a lot of things out there. So I'm stuck. All I do is you Google. It's always okay to Google because you're learning. So let's see. So let's get started. So it is digit. We'll check, find out contains a number. So how would they do this? They did if character is a digit. That's a bit far-fetched. Just see if there's anything better, right? So another way to use is digit is by checking things put together with a list comprehension. So like this, false. This looks like what we need, right? So is digit. So what we did earlier, it does work, right? So is digit can also check if a string is a digit, which if you didn't know, you might not have used it. So this will check if it is digit. Then what we can do is down here is then do user input again, but now we just set it to its typecasted version. So int user input. Here we go. And then now if I run this and I put any string in it, I just get a 0. If I run it again, and this time I give it a number, I get our summed up thing. And I think that sums up this whole problem, right? So is digit, what we want to remember is it doesn't actually convert anything to a digit. It checks if there is a number in it. And if a string has number, if it has no other letter, it'll tell you it is a digit. Else it's not a digit. So when we check up there, we use to get down here. So everything we've done here was a combination of everything we did up here, as well as we did some Googling and learning how to just look up concepts as you need them for your as you're coding. But yeah, I think this solves the problem. We did this, we took something in. You just solved the problem. This is an easier problem, but this is like something you would get in class, etc. If you ever go into computer science class, make it a problem like this. It's probably going to be a bit harder than this, to be honest, but it's okay. We learn and we Google and we'll be fine. Okay, does anyone have any questions about what just occurred, or any conceptual questions that we can answer? If not, I will actually publish this real quick. Global Hack INIT intro to Python. So I am gonna save this. Global Hack INIT introduction to Python. Come and learn the basics of Python. So I will share this with everyone next. Tag Global Hack Week. Enter. Well, that didn't work. So I guess can I do Global Hack Week? Can I create a tag? No, I can't. That's kind of sad. It's coding. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So next, I won't upload an image. Cover page. I don't really need one. Publish as a template. it's not really a template published to the community. So copy. So I'll drop this in chat for anyone that wants to look at the code reference and later with the video. Go to the community. So now you can find this and you can look over what we've done. You can get the code exactly, play around with it. That's how you learn, right? You play around with it is exactly how you learn. So show files. We have this main Python file you can directly edit. But yeah, that is your first introduction to Python. Does anyone have any other questions? If not, I will actually be back in half an hour, or around half an hour, and we're going to go over some basics of Unix and navigating a shell. Project ideas, again, games are really good ones. If you want, you can do anything in Python. It really depends what level of advancedity you are in at. You can be super advanced. You can do a lot of things in Python. Again, for intermediate to beginner, I would start by coding a game. So picking a game like Monopoly, where there is like user input, you have to keep track of user state. You can keep track of using dictionaries. You can code the whole thing with functions and create practice is not only writing your code, but writing good code. So like you can chunk up part of the project. I would start with simple Monopoly, right? So like maybe start off with just getting your UI to print. It's like a printed UI, right? So like, what is your next move? Or like, oh, has something in bot. That may be a bit more hard. We can start doing a bit easier project, like maybe doing a to-do list, right? You get input from a user, puts the to-do list, you can check it off, remove it from the to-do list, and just navigate different concepts in Python, and just want to get familiar with them, right? There's also, if you ever want actual like just coding problem challenge, feel free to hit me up on the Discord, and I will drop you a coding challenge your way. But yeah. I hope that was fun. I will actually be back on soon again, so I'm going to cut it for now. I will be dropping a link for this in the Discord later for anyone who wants to look at this code or follow on later, as well as for anyone who's going to watch this video later. Have a good night, everyone. Take care. And I will see you in 30 minutes. Please do come if you want to get started with Unix. So it won't, actually, that's the wrong thing, but we're going to go over Unix basic command. I will most likely be using Bash because I think it is the most diverse one you can use. So feel free to stop by. We'll be learning some Bash, some cool things in Bash, some cool tricks you can do, and can feel a lot more nifty. But yeah, have a good night, everyone. Take care. Stay safe. I do come back. It will be fun.
You got me left side. Ooh, left side. Ooh, even if it ends, you know, do it all again, I know I could. Just to feel the way this feels. Love star. Ooh, love star. Ooh, even if it ends, you know, do it all again, I know I could. Just to feel the way this feels. You got me love struck. Years they come and go, blink and it goes by fast, you know. Yeah, I see us growing old. Hands wide open up, 'cause I wanna give you all that I got. I don't need anything but you. Heels fly, lift your feet, 'cause we're flying higher than you've ever been. It's always in you and me. Oh, I waited my life for this. Yeah, I waited my life. You got me left side. Ooh, left side. Ooh, even if it ends, you know, do it all again, I know I could. Just to feel the way this feels. Left side. Ooh, left side. Ooh, even if it ends, you know, do it all again, I know I could. Just to feel the way this feels.